These people are fucking terrified, guys. They're terrified of the parallel economy, something that I've been mentioning before. And let me just explain what that sort of is and what that means. I've argued that we need to, and by we, I mean people that value liberty. That's basically what I'm talking about. Value liberty in every sector, not in just political heavy things. I'm talking about with every damn thing. Entertainment and on up and down. You realize that all the guys that control these brands now are fucking assholes. And they want you dead, and they want you starving, and they want to control you and your kids. They made that abundantly clear. They control everything. That's just the reality that we live in right now. So the question is, what are we going to do about it? We can sit here and gripe, which is necessary, but do nothing. Or we can gripe and have those gripes turn into alternatives, particularly alternatives that are separate from them. See, the benefit that these guys generally have is that it's legacy, it's classic, it's precedent, it's being in existence for a very long time and multiple generations. Leftists played a long game, and they were smart to do that, and they infiltrated, and now where we're at now, where you can't get away from them and their social preferences and political preferences. You can't get away from them. They use pretty much everything that they now have and now control to perpetuate what they want. So the need for these sort of different things to exist that are parallel to them, so serve kind of and fill the void that those are, while being separate from them. Those are very necessary if we're going to win in any sort of cultural battle. For decades, and I'm repeating myself, but you have to. This is the nature. It's like radio. It's the nature of being a person that does shows, because someone's watching this and they've never heard of what it is that I'm talking about. But it's in the nature of people to kind of gravitate towards all of this sort of stuff, because we've been there and done that. We know it. We're familiar with it, and we want to see it do good. But now we got to kind of tap out of that and realize that this shit is dead. And we can't, there's no need to fund these idiots, definitely considering that you don't have to. But there's still a void that needs to be filled. So I've advocated, as much as folks, unfortunately, libertarians and so forth, conservatives, they have deemed a lot of this stuff as trivial. Entertainment stuff, trivial. Gaming, who cares? Comic book, nobody cares. All that type of dumb shit. And that's why they lost culturally, because they had no sort of presence in any of it. Leftists took it completely over, as they thought that the more libertarian, liberty-minded people thought that, oh, well, I have the best ideas, therefore that's going to be good enough. Turns out it wasn't. But they're terrified of that existence, and people, and more so the customers and the creators coming into fruition, or having come into fruition their own things that are separate from them, in which they cannot control. That absolutely fucking terrifies them. Here's an example of this. Axios put this out. I don't know if some of you guys know how to saw the tweet, but I'm going to show you the actual article. Right wing builds its own echo chamber is what they're saying. Now, you got to understand that right wing in this context is anything different from them. Shout out to Ryan, RK Outpost, who's in the chat, says easy. Easy. That's what it was. Easy. Me whooping Jeremy's ass in Mario Kart. Anyway, so right wing builds its own echo chamber. Remember, right wing is considered anything opposite of them. So it doesn't matter what you call yourself. You have to understand it, which is why it's really no point in arguing with these. If you know that you're, or whatever it is that you are, and they still call you that, there's no sense in arguing with. They're going to call you that regardless. You're wasting time by arguing with them. But what they're doing is looking at these instances. They're calling MeWe network fucking echo chamber. That's interesting. Blaze, obviously, you guys know that I do work with. And some of these other guys who, to be fair, do kind of slant one way, but there's nothing wrong with that. What they are terrified of this catching on. So, and I called this. Y'all remember videos I did on this? I called this. I said that they are going to, much like they did, like they immediately did it with Gina Carano. When these alternatives present themselves, they're going to try to delegitimize them. Oh, that's not the real thing, is what they'll say. That's not, we don't control it, and by we, I'm meaning them. Therefore, it's not the real thing. It's not what people really want. It's not the legitimate one. So what they'll do is try to delegitimize everything it is that you do. Because they don't want that to, and they have operated, to be fair, a very long time utilizing optics to win, right? So it's like, okay, it might not be one thing. We'll present it as such, and people will believe it. So these things, and they talk about building its own echo chamber, is just people not leftists doing their own thing and seeing a little bit of success. They don't like that. Conservatives are aggressively building their own apps, phones, cryptocurrencies, and publishing houses in an attempt to circumvent what they see as increasingly liberal internet and media ecosystem. Well, that ecosystem is leftist. It has a heavily leftist, and it's not even up for debate, dispute in terms of their bias there. What they deem as acceptable topics, what they consider acceptable narratives are coming from that side. And what is deemed as, or rather should be demonized, are the things that are coming on the other side of them, because they think they have monopoly on the truth, right? They think they have monopoly on being able to be in a position of influence. And because they're the righteous ones, they're the just ones. Why it matters. Many of these efforts couldn't exist without the backing of major corporate figures and billionaires who are eager to push back against things like censorship and cancel culture. Well, you know what we call that, guys? A classic projection. See, this is just another classic case of leftists still, though, being backed by basically every major entity. You saw that in the summer of love last year in 2020. Where leftists went to go destroy shit, and all these big mega corporate entities did nothing but back them and their movements as they went and did it, right? And so when you look at the major corporate movers and the major billionaires, almost none of them are what we would deem as libertarian, okay? Almost none of them. There's a couple here and there that are. They have a lot of money, but for the most part, definitely when it comes to the social media entities, these ain't a bunch of fucking libertarians that run them. So the corporate figures and billionaires that fund them, all of their multimedia platforms, all the media platforms, social media platforms, all the brands, right? The notable brands, they control them. So the billionaires, and this is how stupid they are, they think they're part of the resistance, which they've never been, right? Their opinion and positions are backed and corporate sponsored and have been. They have been. So it's a projection, right? It's not clear whether demand will match the supply. Driving the news, Rumble, a conservative alternative, YouTube agreed to a public and an implied $2.1 billion valuation. The SPAC is sponsored by blah, blah, blah. And they're talking about financial firms led by Trump. Fundraiser Howard Lutnick. And then we got Donald Trump's new social media platform called Truth Social. And they plan to go public soon enough. Getter, social media app launched by ex-Trump aide Jason Miller. And then they said aside from social networks, conservatives are creating alternatives to other tech tools and communication platforms. So his Trump allies recently launched a book publishing called Winning Team Publishing. Cloud storage. Trump's new social media company will be hosted online by RightForge, an internet. And I would argue that this was bigger. This right here is bigger than anything else, considering this. Cloud storage. You got something that says Trump's new social media company will be hosted online by RightForge, which is an internet infrastructure company that courts conservatives. So they have their own space, essentially, and not have to rely on the Amazons of the world. So basically, it makes it, let's call it what it is, virtually impossible to cancel them. Right? And then as this, you got, like they're talking about here with crypto. So you have these instances. This is MAGA coin. That's a shit coin if I ever seen one. But, you know, what those are basically alternatives to using the typical payment processing and all of that. You see kind of some instances that we have like with Odyssey over there. Yes, but while politicians seem eager to find new unregulated avenues, that's what you're calling it. It's not new unregulated. That would be giving it too much credit. I prefer that all of this shit was not regulated. What they're referring to is when they say regulations, things leftists can't control. Reagan for political speech. Data from Apptopia shows that consumers aren't sprinting towards new alternatives. No, they're not. This is what we're trying to change here. Conservatives flocked to a slew of alternative social media networks during the election and weeks following Donald Trump's deplatforming. The bottom line, conservative media has been a powerhouse for a long time, but this phase of its expansion isn't about more or louder conservative voices. It's about building an entire conservative ecosystem. They're terrified. They're terrified. They know that if this catches on, they are virtually powerless. See, they had the benefit of being in control of things that had existed for such a long time. So they have the influence from really by all of us. They have all of that. They have the eyes. They have the minds. They've tapped in. But once that people tap out of that matrix, and like we do, you got what I'm trying to do with comic books. You got, well, these other guys, some of these guys that I'm mentioning, and they start to stick. And people realize, I don't have to sit up here and consume something by way of people that hate me, because there's, and this is the important part, a good competitive alternative that exists in this world. They're fucking terrified. They're terrified. They're trying to delegitimize it, but knows that if this catches on, they're in trouble, guys. They're in trouble because their influence and what they've been able to push has been centered around them existing and controlling the entities that we gravitate towards. So once people stop gravitating towards those, and again, this is why I say it's important that these alternatives have to be out there. We have to do what we got to do. It's not going to be easy. Alternatives have to create. Some will fail. Some will do decently. Some will do very well. But we get out there. We be competitive. We do everything in our power to make those be great. And as more people say, you know what, I don't need DC anymore. I'm going over here towards Rippaverse stuff. They are going to be virtually powerless to stop us. And they're scared shitless. Because they can't control that. See, they could get people off of these other platforms. They can't do it with Blaze TV. They could try. They can attempt. But that's why they're so terrified. And this is just another example of this. They'll try to delegitimize it. They did it, for example, when Gina Carano, she announces that she's going to be doing her own thing. And yeah, I think it was Daily Wire. And trying to still be an actress, doing her thing. And then, immediately people say, oh, it's a demotion. It's not Star Wars. Ha, 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 you loser. And that's what they're going to try to do. Delegitimize. But that's what they've been able to accomplish, and they've been able to do very well because there was no alternative really to them. Now there are, and they're growing, and people are catching on, and they're scared fucking shitless. You just watched a clip from my podcast, For Canon's Sake. Catch us live at 12 p.m. throughout the week over at youtube.com/YoungRipper59 and follow us over at odyssey.com/@YoungRipper59. If you want to watch the entire video cast after the show is over, just be sure to become a member on the YouTube channel. Of course, the full audio portion of the podcast is available for free on all major digital platforms, or just visit forcannonsake.com.